Welcome to day 2 of the 5th International Arts Leadership Roundtable. My name is Shirley Choi, and it is my honor to be your MC today. Yesterday, thanks to the generous sharing by our guests, the Plenary 1 and 2 were successfully held, where we have learned a lot from our international arts leaders. And as an artist myself, I was deeply touched by the insights and the sharing by our speakers, which allows me to dream for a more promising future for our arts industry. But still, as our arts community, recover from COVID-19, the arts sector faces significant challenges like the loss of professionals and reduced resources. Hence, the arts industry is undergoing a restructuring process, which will be discussed in detail in the 3rd plenary today, raising the question, the rise of non-artists or new artists. Adaptations such as a remote collaboration and technology-enhanced performances have empowered some artists, yet they may pose a threat to traditional art forms. Preserving traditional arts while maintaining the importance of live performances is essential for rebuilding the arts ecology. Let's introduce our first speaker, Mr. Takuya TAKEI, member of teamLab, who will share his views on expand people's perception of the world. Mr. TAKEI joined teamLab in 2011, managing projects across Singapore, China, and the Middle East. He started his career at teamLab as a catalyst, bringing together various arts disciplines to enhance project outcomes. In 2013, he became the head of teamLab's Taipei studio, and then took on the role of head of Singapore studio in 2016. He returned to teamLab's headquarters in 2020. Let's give a warm welcome to Mr. TAKEI.
Thank you very much for having me in this great roundtable. So the big topic of this roundtable is art or no art. So today I'd like to explain about the definitions of the art, which teamLab believes that is to expand people's perception of the world. So let me quickly start from the introduction about teamLab. So teamLab is an art collective, and we are trying to create a new type of experience which can be a confluence of the art and the science and the natural world as well. And now our background is very much technology. So 70% of the members are engineers, so AI engineers and computer vision engineers and hardware engineers as well. And we also have like in-house botanists and composers, mathematicians and architects. We always try to transcend the expertise of each of the members and to create a new type of experience. And let me show you some of the examples that we are working on, which is the team of Borderless. So could you play the movie? So we opened the team of Borderless in Tokyo 7 months ago, and the concept is the Borderless. So inside of this museum, we have about 70 independent exhibits, and each of the artwork is independent. However, they transcend their physical boundaries. So one of the easiest examples is this bird. So this bird is one of the independent artwork. However, sometimes the birds fly out, move out their own space, and fly freely inside the entire museum. So it's like a normal artwork, like let's say painting. Normally, the artist will pick up the canvas and they will express something inside the canvas. So maybe I can say the canvas can be a constraint of the expression for everybody. However, teamLab believes in the digital society, human doesn't need to be constrained by the physical boundaries anymore. And furthermore, maybe if the people feel the experience inside of this type of the borderless world, people feel the beauty in the borderless. So maybe borderless can become the new definitions of the beauty. So that we are trying to propose through this museum. So let me go back to the slide. And let me also introduce some of the great artists. So this is the painting which is painted 150 years ago, and the Paris street rainy day. So as you can see, it should be rainy day because everybody hold the umbrella and the ground is wet. But there is no rain in this painting. Actually, in this era, like more than 100 years ago, it's quite difficult for us to find the painting which has the rain inside the painting. So maybe at that time, it might be difficult for the people how they perceive the rain. So that is something that in that era. However, almost same timing, 150 years ago, in Japanese artist Utagawa Hiroshige, he expressed the rain by using the line. And this is one of the like a trend at that time. And many of the artists, like a Bango, is also create a new artwork based on this Japanese artist. So now, if I ask the kids to paint Rainy Day, I think many of the kids will express the rain as the line. So I think this is something that artists always propose, how people will perceive the world. So this is not the like a usual. Now people is always trying to perceive the world through the lens of the camera smartphone. However, the rain can never become the line. So this is one of the type of the perceptions artists can propose. So again, now teamLab in the digital society by using the digital technologies, and we are trying to propose a new type of the like a beauty, which is the borderless. So that is something that we are doing in Tokyo. And now we are working on a new project in Abu Dhabi. So this is our biggest project. So as you can see on the like organic shape of the building, so this is our museum. So this entire museum will become the teamLab museum. It's like a 17,000 square meters. And it's very honored to have this museum just next to the Louvre Museum, the Guggenheim Museum. So this museum that we also planning to propose a new type of the concept, which is the environment phenomena. This is a big project. We are almost complete the construction. This is the pictures of almost 1 year ago, and we will open this museum. We will complete this museum by the end of this year. So many of the team members in Abu Dhabi, and I will be also in Abu Dhabi next week. And this is one of the example of the what type of the new artwork we are trying to create inside this museum in Abu Dhabi. Could you play the movie? So this is the sculptures of the cloud. So normally the artwork can exist independently. So like a normal painting and sculptures, of course that artwork can exist independently. However, this sculpture of the cloud is different. So we have to create an environment that will support and that will create the phenomena, which is this cloud. And that phenomena cloud itself can become the artwork. And the interesting part of this cloud is even people try to destroy this cloud, it's almost impossible. As long as environment is there, the cloud will repair by itself, and cloud as a sculptures, it stays there. So now teamLab is trying to create new types of the artwork in Abu Dhabi, which will be like an environmental phenomena that artwork cannot exist independently and created by the environment. So that is something that we are trying to propose as a next step. Yeah, thank you very much.
Much. Thank you, Mr. Takei, for the insightful sharing. And now may we introduce our second speaker, Ms. Tonya NELSON, Executive Director of Enterprise Innovation at Arts Council, England. She joined the council as when she was appointed to be the first Director of Arts Technology and Innovation in 2019. She is also the co-author of the UK Department for Culture, Media and Sports Policy report titled Culture is Digital. She sits on the board of trustees of the National Gallery in London and Royal Collection Trust, which oversees the Royal Collection and the official residences of His Majesty the King. Please join me in welcoming Ms. NELSON to the stage.
Good morning, everybody. First, I just want to say a big thank you to the Hong Kong Arts Development Council for inviting me to be here. It's a great honor to be here. I forgive you for scheduling me after teamLab. It's a hard act to follow, but I'll try. Today, I want to talk to you about the Arts Council's 10-year strategy called Let's Create. And the reason I want to do that is because I think it really hits upon the topic of this particular session, which is about who has the ability to create, who is an artist. But before I get to that, I just want to say a little bit about the original mission of the Arts Council in England. it was originally established, they said, to cultivate a few flowers, make those into roses. And so originally it was about supporting a handful of top-notch organizations to make sure that they became elite around the world. But we've really, over the years, changed the way we think about things. And now we think we want a full garden of flowers, and we want them to be diverse. They're not just roses, they're orchids, they're lots of different things. We want a beautiful garden of creativity. So let's just go to the first slide here. What's our vision? So when we rolled out Let's Create, we revised our vision. What we said is by 2030, we want England to be a country in which creativity of each of us is valued and given a chance to flourish, and where everyone has access to a remarkable range of high quality experiences. And if you had seen our previous strategy, which was called Great Arts for All, you would have just seen that last part of that phrase, which was about access to culture. But what's new about Let's Create, it's like our job is not just to give access to culture, but ensure that everybody has the opportunity to create. So how will we deliver on this strategy? Well, we've got kind of three pillars. We want to have creative people, so everyone can develop and express creativity throughout their lives. And so this is not just about young people, it's about people throughout their lives. How can we encourage it from the time of birth to the time of death, essentially? Cultural communities. How can we ensure that every place around England, not just the big cities, but the villages and towns, work together to cultivate arts and culture where people live and actually support the art and talent in their local area? And then three, how do we maintain a creative and cultural country? We want to make sure that the UK and England stays at the forefront of cutting-edge new technologies that can be used for new art forms. We want to make sure that our established organizations have the support they need in order to remain internationally relevant and competitive. So it's a tall order, but that's what the underpinning is for our strategy. And so rather than taking you through every bit of the strategy and all the different actions we have under it, I just thought I'd highlight a couple of things that kind of articulate where we're going with this strategy and show how Arts Council doesn't just see itself as a funder, but as a development agency. And I think yesterday, maybe another person said they conceived of their organization as a development agency, and we do too. And what that means is it's not just about providing funding and grants, but it's about how we cultivate the whole creative ecosystem. And that's about how we use our expertise and how we use our convening power to bring people together to do great things. And so one of the things that's kind of new for us is we have established a program under the creative people. It's called Talent 25. It's going to be a 25-year longitudinal study, and we have recruited 400 families with babies between the ages of 3 months and 12 months. And what we will do over the next 25 years is study how arts and culture impact their development and their lives. And so those 400 that were selected as part of this study will get access to free arts and culture throughout their lives at different time periods. And what we'll be able to do is kind of be able to understand, first of all, what would be the barriers and what needs to happen in order for people from a very, very young age, infants, to be able to engage with arts and culture. But we'll also see what the impact is. And this study's been going on for about 4 years now. And so preliminarily, what's really interesting is we've already seen that the cohort that we have of what sort of infants who are now going to be going into school are actually more prepared to enter school, primary school, than those who haven't because of this engagement with arts and culture. So this is going to be, I think, for us, a great evidence base to demonstrate the value of arts and culture, but also it's going to be about really sticking to what we're saying, is that there's opportunity everywhere. I mean, there's talent everywhere. There's lots of talent, but there's not opportunity. And what we want to do is provide opportunities from the very start. So that's Talent 25. We also have a long-standing program, but it's just coming, the value of it and the kind of impact of it is just starting to be seen, and it's called Creative People and Places. And so typically the way we would work is we have arts organizations that would apply to us for funding, and if they meet certain criteria, they will be funded. What Creative People and Places does is actually put the power of decision-making in the hands of local organizations and local communities. So what it does is it asks consortiums of grassroots organizations to come together, and they get funded by Arts Council then to deliver a program that's really responsive to the desires, needs of their locality. And so what's interesting about it is when people apply to be a Creative People and Places delivery hub, they're not applying to say, we want to deliver this particular dance program or theater program. What they apply to say is, this is how we're going to engage with audiences. This is how we're going to engage with local artists. This is what we're going to do in order to make sure that people in their local communities feel empowered to select what arts and culture that they deliver, and also that actually we're going to empower local artists and people who are already in our communities to be artists. And so it's been a really successful program in the sense of really building that local empowerment, cultivating new artists at a local level, and places where people would say there's low engagement, or they would call it a cultural, cold spot because there's not a major theater or, there's not a ballet company. People who understand their area know that it's not a cultural cold spot. They know that there's probably rich culture that needs to be cultivated, and it can be cultivated by the people who live there. So that's our Creative People and Places program, and that is how we are helping to address that kind of outcome too around cultural communities. And what we're seeing, actually, what's really great for us is we developed this program. It's been going for quite a long time, but we've got a brand new government, and it's a brand new government that's really thinking about local decision making. And so it's great for us as an arts council to already have an infrastructure that delivers on the new government's agenda around place-based decision-making and economic development that's very locally rooted. So, and then, it's about pushing forward and making sure that we stay, arts and culture within England stays at the cutting edge. And so we do lots of things to kind of support that. Not only are we supporting our largest organizations that are world-renowned, but what we're trying to do is cultivate the artists of the future using new art forms. And so just two of the programs I wanted to talk about were Creative XR, which is a program in which we provide not only seed funding for prototyping with immersive tech or immersive audio, but we also provide access to equipment and expertise. So this is really about not just saying those people who already somehow have access to that expertise who can grow and thrive in that new area. But what we're trying to do is get lots of different diverse audiences and different people to think through how you can use those new technologies and how we can support the ecosystem of developing work using those technologies. And then developing your creative practice. So, we've heard in the conversations I've had in the breaks, people have talked about how do we support artists? How do we do that? And I don't think I have an answer to it generally, but one of the things that we have rolled out is something called developing your creative practice. And what that recognizes is that you have artists who will, go through their careers and want to change directions. They'll want to shift tact, and we want to support them in that. So this is not just about supporting somebody when they're brand new or supporting an artist once they're established. It's about understanding that people have long careers and that we want to support them to be able to develop new skills and develop their practice even further through grants, which will allow them to stop work for a period of time to be able to explore a new skill or area of practice. So that's just a kind of overview of some of the types of programs we are delivering in order to make good on our strategy, Let's Create. But we're only five years through it. We're about 5 years through it. So I thought I would just give you some reflections on how it has worked out so far. So, I mean, I just want to say that when we launched this strategy, it was the beginning of COVID. So it really changed a lot about how we would think about what we were trying to deliver. And as we've heard other presentations, other presenters talk about, I mean, COVID had a huge impact in terms of people weren't able to go out, they did things at home. But what was really interesting is not only did people get access to digital content, I mean, cultural content that they wouldn't be able to have gotten access to prior to COVID, there were a lot of organizations that started to develop programs that were about teaching people how to do things in arts and culture. And in actuality, the programs that were like that were the ones that had traction after COVID. So one example is we have a ballet company called Rambert, and they developed an online platform called Rambert at Home, where you could do a dance lesson along with a dancer there for fitness purposes and that kind of thing. And that platform continues to thrive today, post-COVID. And so we know people have a real appetite for getting access to people who are professional creatives and learning how to do things that they do, either for their health and well-being or because they're ambitious about understanding what that art form is or becoming artists themselves. But obviously, post-COVID, we had a huge issue with inflation, which meant that the organizations we already support were feeling the pinch. And then we had this much larger strategy here where we're trying to support arts and culture development across the board for lifelong learning, as well as our established organizations. And that has really created a lot of tension in terms of where do we prioritize our funding. We want to keep the whole ecology going. One is not better than the other, but we need to have an ecology. And we need to figure out how we can support that in new and different ways. And while we do get grant funding from the government, that funding has been flat for many, many years. And so what we're trying to do, and part of my job in enterprise and innovation, is to support organizations to develop new business models, new ways of generating income, new forms of philanthropy, in order to make sure that the ecosystem gets the financial injection that it needs to be able to grow and develop. And that will require a little bit of, I think, mindset change, in a sense, that people have to be open to thinking differently about how they raise funds in order to deliver their work, but we want to be there to support them. I mean, I'd have to say that also part of the fallout from inflation and COVID is that, at least in England, there has been a kind of retrenchment back to well-established pieces of artworks, and that there's been a kind of a lack of experimentation, a fear of taking risk, because, you know, if you take risk, you may fail. You may not get the audience that you need in order to maintain your business. And so Arts Council's been thinking of very strategic interventions that we can do in order to ensure that people feel comfortable that they continue to experiment. Because it's only when you experiment are you going to get the innovation that becomes the big new idea. But overall, I think what I would end by saying is simply that what we're seeing through this strategy in the first 5 years is a lot of green shoots. We're seeing a lot of people who wouldn't ordinarily apply to the Arts Council for funding are applying. We're seeing a lot of people who are interested in becoming artists and going into arts happen across the country. It's not just London or Birmingham. And so we feel really positive about what we're doing here and with Let's Create, and really feel like it's a real opportunity for us overall to play a role in thinking about how arts and culture support, you know, all of society, and from lots of different perspectives. We feel that arts and culture are really important to the economic growth of the country, to being an innovative country generally. So we feel that the strategy is on the right path, but not without some challenges associated with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson, for the sharing. And now let me introduce our next speaker, Dr. Pavla PETROVÁ, the Director of Arts and Theatre Institute in Prague. Dr. PETROVÁ is the Director of the Arts and Theatre Institute in Prague. She has also served as the Assistant Professor at the Department of Arts Management of the Prague University of Economics and Business. Let us welcome Dr. PETROVÁ.
Good morning to everyone. I must say that it will be even more harder to speak after my, now I can say friends from teamLab and also overwhelming culture policy in the UK. But I will try also. First of all, I have to really thank to be invited here, because we are a very small country from East Europe, and we very appreciate your hospitality of Hong Kong Arts Development Council. So thank you very much. I will start maybe with some remarks about the situation in Czech Republic. There are some significant changes, and compared to what we heard here about different museums, the situation in Czech Republic, but I can speak also more about Eastern countries, it's slightly different. Cultural heritage was the first of cultural and creative industries, especially libraries and museums, to be part of the digital transition. This has been the case for a long time. Libraries, they were really the motion of digital transition in the 90s. But now we can see that cultural heritage is currently lagging behind other CCI sectors. Why is this so? There has been a point of stagnation where development has faced obstacles due to increasing barriers and reduced interaction with the audience. Alongside a considered approach to technology selection, business skills, emotional intelligence, and digital proofs are essential. Innovation encompasses various dimensions beyond the digital realm and includes not only learning to use new tools, but also understanding how people collaborate and interact. As in other European countries, we are testing the approach in pilot projects. A number of these involve promoting experimentation in culture and learning within the ecosystem. Sorry. It's important to involve users and address real needs, which requires investment in training, leadership, and organizational evaluation. Sorry, excuse me. This pandemic, many things changed and accelerated digital transition. It was already said. We started new programs, but actually what's happened after, it was after the post-COVID. This was mainly in the context in the European Commission's comprehensive program to help member states overcome the effects of the pandemics. Individual EU member states were tasked with preparing their own draft national recovery and resiliency plans. In most countries, including major players in the cultural sector, such as France, but also in the Czech Republic, these plans focus massively on the culture and creative industries, and on digitization and education. The plans is now still ongoing, so it's really not time to evaluate, but we can see that for the Czech culture and creative sector, we have been able to distribute the highest amount of money so far since 1990. What we are focusing now. Data-driven work can strengthen public engagement in cultural organization and help them reach new audiences. But there is a need to strengthen digital skills and promote international knowledge sharing with regard to the use of data. We feel that in many organizations, are experiencing skepticisms around digital transition. Building trust in technology is therefore paramount. If trust is built within cultural organizations, then the next course of action is for management, particularly those larger arts and cultural organizations, to create new working habits, to cultivate what is called digital courage. Clearly, there is no one-size-fits-all solution, and success often depends on how organizations adapt and work within their unique context. In Europe, there are currently various platforms making support for networking of different stakeholders in digital transition. I just pick up here a few of them, and for example, Belgian Cultuur Connect, with aim of strengthening digital leadership in the cultural sector and to develop a robust digital strategy. Another initiative of the Dutch Knowledge Institute for Culture and Digital Transformation, again, originally focused on cultural heritage, but now expanded to standardization across the cultural sector. Advances in artificial intelligence are influencing an audience behavior, and they see that audiences are shifting to alternative platforms such as streaming, which enable immersive experiences. And this one, it's again necessary to encourage. French example, ACNUM, the National Network for Hybrid Arts and Digital Culture, which again brings together more than 400 actors in the sector to defend their common interest in digital shift. And the last, but not least, Czech example, Technology, Art, Humanities, creative and innovative platform, which is aiming to support interdisciplinary collaboration in the field of new technologies, arts, design, humanities, and social sciences. And really, at the end, what will the future hold? Undoubtedly, there is a need to innovate the business models of cultural organizations, as well as to consistently pay attention to the continued importance of democracy and diversity, and to focus on the interests of users, customers, or audiences. Last two pictures at the end. All these pictures accompanying the presentation were from this year's biggest and, in my opinion, most interesting showcase of art tech, innovative and technological projects that use creativity and innovation to show examples of usefulness for other fields, not only in culture and creative industries, but in, for example, like agriculture or medicine. And we are supporting presentation of Czech projects as well on that showcase Ars Electronica in Linz, in our neighborhood country in Austria. Thank you for your attention.
Oh, well, it's very rich and enriching this morning. So from artists, technology, we're also venturing into ecosystem and the enterprises. I must thank my panel speakers for your wonderful presentation, and we have very diverse from a very rich and culturally important historical city and country like Czech Republic to England with all the new advances. I love your culture is digital. I must learn more about that. And Takuya-san, thank you very much for teamLab, which does not have actors. Okay, I will first start by perhaps we can share a bit about this enterprise. And we're now moving a bit into not just government grants, but how to survive and how to sustain and how to have new resources. And Tonya, you mentioned that the government is shrinking its in its budgets and so on. And how's the Czech Republic doing? And I love you start with the libraries. Now, libraries, nobody mentioned libraries so far, but thank you for bringing it up. And Czech has lovely libraries. And then we come to your enterprise, which is very rich. And Abu Dhabi is giving them land to build a teamLab museum there. Well, how envious we are. So to you, maybe Tonya, you can talk about funding first, and then Pavla, and then Takuya-san.
Sure. I think for the most part, when people think about the Arts Council, England at least, they think about us as a grant giver. So it's a direct, I have a project or I have a business, I have a cultural organization and I want either core funding or I want project funding. But as I said, there's more and more demand, which is good. We are generating the demand. There's more demand for support from us, and our budgets haven't increased to meet that demand. And so we have to think creatively and support the sector and think creatively about how to access different types of funding. And so part of my team works on business innovation. And what we do is kind of work with organizations to think about how they can develop new income streams through the types of work that they do. So for instance, it could be, we all know that many organizations will do venue hire and they'll have shops and that type of thing. But more and more organizations are delivering activities having to do with health and well-being, which support the health industry. And so we are helping them shape business models of where they can actually get either commissions from our National Health Service in order to deliver this work, as opposed to coming to the Arts Council, going to a different government agency to be able to package their work in a way to be able to develop, to get funding from our health service for the work that they're doing. As well as we're thinking about new technologies, new IP, new methods of exploiting IP that could be really effective. And then we're also thinking about philanthropy differently. We know the world of philanthropy is changing, and that there's now interest in this whole concept of social impact investing, where people are willing to invest in something not for a high financial return, some financial return, but also social impact. And so we're trying to help organizations think about how they measure their impact so they can tap into those funds.
Sorry, could I jump in a little?
Yeah.
It is said that in England, culture is so important, excuse me, culture and arts is so important that there are many philanthropists who are willing and happy and has a tradition of giving compared with other countries. Do you see that as valid?
Well, you may have picked up that my accent is a U.S. accent, so I'm American, so compared to the United States, everything pales, because U.S. is the capital of philanthropy and people giving, and that is the main business in the United States. I would say the U.K. is is kind of a half step behind in terms of, I think what we try to do is kind of think, we have a model that's basically 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. 1/3 government, 1/3 philanthropy, 1/3 commercial. That's what people are kind of going for. So that's the expectation. But we do things, my team not only supports organizations in terms of their philanthropic efforts, but we also create a culture of philanthropy. So a lot of people will give money, but they'll give money to organizations that are well established, which tend to be in London. And we want to encourage place-based giving where you live. So we're trying to create a culture of giving that exceeds what the reputation we already have.
Excellent, excellent. Incidentally, Hong Kong is called the hub of philanthropy in Asia. So we can talk about that. Pavla?
Yes. Cultural entrepreneurship, it's something which is very, very important. Actually, our east part of Europe, we are very much historically depending on public money. And COVID-19 taught the culture and creative sector that it's not able just to rely on public support. So it's more and more we can see the demand about trainings and some education, how to be more independent on public money. And of course, it also depends on different fields. For example, art tech, or visual arts, or gaming industry, which is very strong in the Czech Republic as well. They are not relying at all on any public money. So,
did you say art tech is not reliant on public money?
No, because for instance, the government subsidies, they are not focusing on supporting really these art tech projects. It's more about innovative research projects. So if you are doing some consortium with maybe also the other consortiums exist across, for example, with agriculture or medicine, you can find easily some public money, but it's not directly for cultured art tech projects.
But you said gaming is doing fine in Czech.
Yeah. Yes, we are very popular. I am not really the generation grow up with this, but yes, we are very famous about.
Okay, thank you. From gaming, we look into teamLab. teamLab is not gaming, but it's a game. And Takuya-san told me that there are 1,000 people working in teamLab, 700 are engineers. So the next question is, are these engineers artists? So, Takuya-san.
No. So we create artwork. However, each of the members is not the artist. So I'm not the artist, I'm the catalyst.
You're not the artist, you are what?
So as a group, we are art collective, and we are trying to create the artwork which propose new perceptions. But as each of the members, it's what we are creating is very complicated. So it's almost impossible to create by the individuals. So that's why we create the team. And each of the team members has the expertise like engineering and like a botanist, mathematician, the architects, and we try to create a new experience together as a group and as a team.
That's why it's called teamLab.
Yeah.
Okay. Tonya-san, you're very humble. You said you're not an artist, but in creating the teamwork, definitely you're part of the arts leadership. And can you tell us more what your next goal will be after Abu Dhabi?
Wow, that's a big question.
Secret business, yeah.
No, it's not secret. So again, we always try to create a new type of the questions to the world. So now one of the questions we are created is the borderless. Maybe if the people feel the borderless, people feel the beauty in the borderless. That's something that we are proposing. And from Abu Dhabi, that we are trying to create a new type of the experiments of the environment phenomena. If each of the artwork will not exist independently, and the environment creates the phenomena, and the phenomena create artwork. So that's something that we are trying to do as a next. But after that, I don't know.
Phenomena and artwork. And I heard, maybe you can tell us, that you will be also building something in Los Angeles and other cities.
Sorry, that's still secret.
Okay, sorry. So in a way, it would be a bit like Disneyland, starting to proliferate in different parts. Okay, secret. Delete this. Okay, now it's time for the floor to ask and exchange. And there are very interesting scenarios here on the stage. So would anyone want to start first?
This is really for Tonya. You know, what's fascinating with what Takuya and teamLab has been doing is looking at creating something for the environment. Today, given the state of the planet and the responsibility that every artist must have to reflect the crisis that we're going through, is there any policy that you or Dr. Pavla in Prague are looking at to perhaps nudge artists to look at this issue as a primary and most important one?
Do you want me to go first? I can go first. So yes, the answer is yes. So I have a team working under me that's about environmental sustainability, and that's just not about infrastructure sustainability, although it includes that, but it's about cultivating the culture of awareness around climate change. And so in our application processes, we have these things called investment principles. These are the underlying principles that underpin everything we fund, and every applicant has to address environment. That is an investment principle we have. And so people can talk about in their application how they are supporting environment through the actual content that they're doing. They're trying to influence, they're trying to create work that raises awareness, or it's the way they're delivering it, and hopefully it's it's trying to do everything. So we do that. It's interesting though, I mean, I think we can do more to support arts and culture in the storytelling bit, and also I think the collective work that can be done on the ground, because I think that cultural organizations sometimes are the anchors of communities, and that's where a lot of collective, I think, work around climate change can be done. I think we're probably pretty good at understanding individually what we can do, but the next step is how we do things collectively, and one of the things I want to try to support going forward is how we can have our cultural institutions be anchors for that kind of collective action, and how we can actually use our artists even more, amplify their work in terms of raising awareness through storytelling. A number of the television broadcast organizations within the UK want to come together and work with us in order to create more storylines and narratives that emphasize the climate emergency. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I see that we are ongoing with multi-crisis, and speaking here about technologies, we are also very much focused on ethic in connection with AI, and we know now we have already some recommendations from UNESCO about AI, and brandly new law, the EU Act about AI, trying to regulate AI. But what we are solving, like Arts Council, we can see already some hollowing out professions in the arts, like graphic designers or translators. So yeah. We are very much focused on ethic codex and, of course, the other symptoms of this multi-crisis, like it's, of course, our environment, all this well-being after COVID, because also it's huge task for us to deal with this kind of theme in culture and creative sector.
So Takuya-san, for ESG, which is very much the buzzword now, environmental, social and governance, sustainability, how does teamLab take that into a key principle, I suppose?
So yeah, of course, that we are carrying that. So that's why one of the concepts that we are proposing is the environment phenomena, which my people's conscious and existences go to more to the environment rather than that, the specific existence. And in addition to that, we also care about many of the technical solutions. For example, that we have to use many of the PCs and projectors. So like in Tokyo, all our equipment supported by the renewable energy. And in addition to that, for example, in Tokyo, in Japan, normally it's like a 100 voltage. However, we instead of the 100 voltage in our exhibition in Tokyo, we utilize the 200 voltage because 200 voltage is more efficient for the power. And also that we're also trying to do another approach. Like last year, we had the exhibition in Abu Dhabi, the outdoor exhibitions in the mangrove forest. Maybe nobody knows, but in Abu Dhabi, it's like an image of like a desert. However, actually, they have the huge mangrove forest, and all the mangrove forest is planted artificially. And we utilize that beautiful mangrove forest for our canvas. So maybe we hope that will support for the activities of the planting of the mangrove forest every year, so that we also work on that type of the support together as well.
Great. So the arts has also this extension into ESG and all the key themes of the world, and it's really reaching beyond just aesthetics. Yes, Alice? And then one question over there.
Thank you, Bernadette. Tonya, you had mentioned in your presentation about impact investing. I'm wondering if you can cite some examples or case studies that you've seen in England. That can be kind of an example. I know Bernadette also mentioned we are kind of philanthropy. We see ourselves in Hong Kong. Philanthropic hub for Asia. And impact investing has been a hot topic here in this part of the world, and especially in Hong Kong for the last decade. But the impact investing in the arts, we have not yet seen. And so I'm curious your thoughts on that from the England perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, so Arts Council several years ago, about 5 years ago, went into an endeavor with Bank of America and a couple of other trusts and foundations to create the Arts and Culture Impact Fund. So that was our first foray into that area where arts organizations can apply for funding, so for loans, equity, different forms of financing under a social impact model where they articulate what the social impact is, but also, and then what is the return they're going to make. And we've had several organizations who've applied for that, who've done, many of them, like I said, this is the beginning of our journey. So many of them have done it to cash flow capital projects where they've wanted to expand, and they see the expansion of their building or their site as a way of increasing the impact of their work. That's not so creative, but it's an intervention that allows us to put money in and get some money out in the end. But I've been more interested in the organizations that are doing kind of developing side businesses that are not necessarily arts businesses, you wouldn't say, but like small spin-out businesses, for instance, around training and skills development, that they've been able to make that into a business, and we've been able to finance that for them in order for them to have the startups. So we're just in the beginning of that journey in terms of social impact investing, but just to say, the fund that we started now just in the past 3 months has now converted into a new organization called Figurative. And Figurative now is kind of an independent organization that will start to raise more money. They're going to start an environmental impact fund. So they're going to really be focused on that issue. And we're hoping, again, to start, and one of the things that they are going to do as an organization, and we're going to work with them, is start to teach organizations how they measure their social impact, because that's a key problem here, is how you measure social impact. So we're in the beginning of that journey, but I think it's quite exciting. And I think it's quite necessary because I think the nature of philanthropy is changing. And I think we've got to kind of get on the boat with that. So.
Very interesting. I think arts is never just arts. It's part of the social ecosystem and part of society. And now we're all breaking barriers. It's no longer just in the theater or a certain space, but it's going all out into every sphere, from sports, health, education to creative industries. Would you want to pitch in on that? Business models. Business models. So maybe later on, we'll pick that question first, and we'll come back to the business models of arts organizations or artistic organizations. Yes, we have a question from the gentleman. Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. And also the lady, yeah.
I have a question for Takuya-san, 2 questions. The one question is, I'm curious about the creative process of teamLab's work. It means that how do you start new projects? How do you come up with new ideas? The second question is, okay, you mentioned there are 700 engineers. How about the remaining 300 people? Who are they? Are they all artists or doing logistics or blah, blah, blah? Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So first question about process is very much a creation process is experiment. So we never do the brainstorming. We always do a small type of the prototyping and experiment. And we just talked about Abu Dhabi. Actually, that we spent 6 years to complete that project. So we do many of the experiments. So to create one artwork like a cloud, actually we spend almost 2 years, and we do the more than 10 times of the experiments, starting from the very small prototyping to the like one-to-one scale, the big experiments. So that is very much process of the creation. And the second question is easy. So 70% is engineer, and the 15% is designers and the CG animators. And the rest is the like project managers. We also have the botanists, mathematicians, and composers.
Botanists.
Yeah, these type of the peoples.
One thing I have to disagree with you.
One point that's maybe that might be helpful is we also have the in-house photographer. So all the video that I show you is all shot by our members. And now we have dedicated photographer and videographer by ourselves. But I think that's also important for the artists to how to think about promotion and PRs by themselves. So even like 15 years ago, we are very small teams. One of our members like the photography as a hobby. He just buy the cameras by himself, and we are shooting our artwork by ourselves because that might be better than the professional photographer. So that's we are always working on in-house.
Yes, that's the photographer is actually communicating and really quite an artistic team. I said that I disagree with you was when you said you're not an artist. I think we'll broaden that to, artist really is a team and anybody who has some contribution to that. Yes.
Yeah, maybe let me correct my comment. I'm not the artist, but teamLab, I hope the teamLab is an artist. So as an individual, each of the member is not the artist.
Oh, wow. Very defining. Yes, and one question from the lady. Yes.
Good morning. I want to share my experience. I have published 3 books in ink painting of China's 4 major classicals. I said it's difficult to find sponsor and for promotion. I said my first book is by the Trade Development Council. Help me to have a new book launch.
Yes, I understand. Thank you. So your
other
question
ways is the school at school.
Yes, so I understand your question is about sponsorship and support, and then it comes back to our business model. Promotion
for
also.
the new books.
Thank you. So this books is part of arts and culture, but it relates back to our business model. How can we sustain and how can we get the resources apart from government? So what's the business model? Yours is very special. Maybe we start with yours.
My suggestion is like, as I just mentioned, that maybe you did shooting by yourselves. That's one of my suggestions.
You should
shooting the video, the photography of your performance by yourself. That's my suggestion. In addition to that, I just saw the performance yesterday, and during the performance, the photography was prohibited. Photography by the audience was prohibited. I think it's normal for the performance arts, and I also understand the risk of the flashing that might disturb the performance. However, I personally feel it's time to let the audience to take pictures and take a photography during the performance. And afterwards, everybody will share that experience with the people and the friends. And that will help a lot for you to promote your artwork.
Yeah, that's very TeamLab. And that's very interesting because here in Hong Kong, I think, or in many places, the traditional performances, ballet and so on, drama, you don't want people taking photos and holding up the camera. But in all the concerts, Taylor Swift and everything, of course, the cameras are everywhere. And you want that instant share of information. So yes, that sort of promotion sharing is important. About books, yesterday, our Korean speaker was talking about the government support for the writers all the way. And that's why they have this Nobel laureate now, the lady, Han Gang, and he was very proud to say that the government funded her all the way up. And Tonya, you're...
Well, I mean, I just thought I would bring up an example, just that has come to mind. I haven't fully processed it, but it's really how the changing dynamic of how promotion works. So the National Gallery in London is obviously a big national institution, but it's very, very keen to
connect with a new generation of audiences. And so for its 200th anniversary, it's launched a program called 200 Creators, which is individual artists who have a range of different kind of artistic backgrounds, perspectives. And basically what it's done is created a partnership, and it's paying those creators actually to do collaborative work with the National Gallery, so that National Gallery's profile is amplified through the network of creators, but those creators' works is also amplified through the National Gallery, network of people. So it's really interesting to think about those types of things, of capturing your work, partnering in lots of different ways in order to tap into new audiences and new, potentially new customers or new people to engage with your work.
That's a great idea, and that's the so-called 9 big companies and all the smaller companies in Hong Kong and the West Kowloon are trying to reach out, but I think there's a lot more that they can learn from Tonya and from their experience of how you network and connect and bring in the younger generation, or all generations. I think Tonya has a point today about making everything accessible, not just to the public as audience, but also as artists, so that they are not second-class citizens just sitting there observing. You only pay your ticket and then you're kicked out. But they're really participating and becoming part of that. I think that is a very democratic concept, and I think that is working out very well as well. Now, check.
Yeah.
How does that work, Pavla?
Because my institution, it's mostly focused on performing arts. So my experience is just that it's working to let them go together, artists and audience. Let them to participate. Let them to go to their kitchen and to see how is it inside. And after,
the kitchen?
Like a kitchen, how is the creative process in theater. We have very successful contemporary circus, for example, and it's working perfectly. These workshops, small, like going somewhere where it's not possible normally to enter, and after social networks is doing the job after.
Yeah, great. Going to the kitchen, whether it's the real kitchen or the backstage and so on. Yes, we have a question here. Do we have any more questions? And one there. One here and one there. Thank you for all the questions. Very interesting. Yes.
Thank you. And my question is for Tonya, and I'm very interested, I think, in the impact fund that you and your organization have been able to establish with the private sector. Can you be able to share a little bit more detail around how the performance of the fund has been? And then secondly, the artists, when they're coming to apply for the fund, excuse me, is their ability to service the loan based on the side businesses that you are kind of referring to, or is it mainly from their artistic products, goods or services? Thank you.
Maybe I'll take the other question as well.
Well, thank you very much. I do have a question for Mr. Takei-san from teamLab. That your project launched in major cities around the world, and do you think that cultural differences will influence the methods of curation and design? And also you mentioned about experiments, yeah? Does that also include the local user testing, during the process of design? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So Tonya first.
Yeah, so the Arts and Culture Impact Fund, which we're now kind of wrapping up and then moving the money into this new organization called Figurative, I can give you the stats on that part of it, which is, as we're getting to the wrap-up point, I think we gave about 50 loans, 50 kind of in financing arrangements, and probably about 5 of them didn't work out, so we didn't get payback on 5 of them. So 10% didn't pay back, so it was actually quite successful. But like I said, they weren't, if I'm truly honest, they weren't the most risky type of propositions. They were quite, they put in a business plan, and many organizations are very good at putting in business plans around expanding their shop or expanding those types of things where you know that the risk is relatively low and you're just kind of cash flowing. So I have to say it's probably not a good test of what it is in the future or what we're intending around it, which is slightly more unusual propositions. But basically what they'll have to do is both, they work with our team that we have working to say, this is what our idea is, this is what the impact we think is going to be on a certain number of measures, whether it's kind of like, so for instance, we had a hip hop dance company and a hip hop music production company who wanted us to invest in them becoming a joint venture together and being something called the Talent House, which would like amplify both of those businesses. And they wanted us to invest in that so they could get a new building and create like a new governance structure for their organization. And so impact around that was really measured on, how much talent they were going to be able to train and develop as part of that, but also the return on investment in terms of once their business the business element of what they were doing started, what would be the return on that? So it's combining both things. Does that answer your question? And just to say, we have a website for it that has a bunch of case studies. So if you're really interested in seeing it, Arts and Culture Impact Fund, Arts Council, you can find them there.
Yeah. While passing to Takuya-san, teamLab also works with developers to create value for the land and so on. Can you elaborate a bit on that and then answer the lady's question?
Sure. So let me answer the question first. So for example, this year that we opened our flagship exhibition in Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi, and we created many of the new artwork. However, none of the artwork is based on the cultures in the Middle East. So we always try to create the experience, maybe which can propose the new perceptions, more like a universal perception to the humanity. So we try to avoid just focus on the one specific cultures. That's what we are believing. But at the same time, we also believe that the boundary on each culture is quite big. Like as you can easily imagine, like a Japanese culture and the Chinese cultures influence each other strongly. So especially Japanese culture is influenced by the Chinese culture strongly. So there's no the clear boundaries in between each cultures. So that's what we believe. And the questions is about the more like a business model. So normally that we work with the local real estate developers. Like in Macau, we collaborate with Sands, and the same partner in Singapore, Marina Bay Sands. In Tokyo, we collaborate with Mori Building. So they have the real estate developer who has the land and who has the hotel and the retails and the convention center. And their purpose to have the teamLab is they try to increase the value of their entire property, and they put the teamLab museum as a part of their property, and they try to increase the value of their entire property. That is normally we are trying to together with our local partner.
Yes, makes us wonder whether WK West Kowloon is also going that direction. We see a lot of that in the mainland too, that with museums, with arts organizations, the district then gets up in value. Pavla, anything you want to tell us from your Czech experience?
I mean, it's not universal business model which can work. I mean, there is indifferent. When you Takaya is speaking about his business. I mean, in Czech Republic, I can stress maybe glass industry because they are working very much with all the other creative parts. For example, the company Last Fit, which is also presented in Hong Kong, I guess. And so this mutual cooperation, for me, it's the clue.
Yes, all that goes next into branding and all the different enterprises, and they're so exciting. Thank you very much, and that's the time for a very nice round of applause to our speakers. Thank you. Thank you for all the experiences.